200s, all brilliant rides. Now the competitors have just got 5 weeks to prepare for round 6 and the Caledon 400.
Bloemfontein, capital of the Free State, is a city of imposing architecture, where the old blends with the new. History and modernism live happily together in a cosmopolitan environment, with Bloemfontein recently playing host to round 4 of the Stanek Rally Championship. In stark contrast to the stately South African Appeal Court building, the Loch Logan waterfront is an example of the modern Bloemfontein and provided a colourful venue for the start of the mountain trial. The trial saw national championship rallying return to Bloemfontein for the first time in 3 years. And from the early 80s to 1996, the rally earned a fearsome reputation on the South African calendar. The mountain trial saw the championship reach the halfway stage, with 1997 champions Havoc and Judd holding a narrow 7-point lead over multiple drivers' champions Serge Damso and co-driver Guy Hodgson. Havoc remembers those halcyon days of the mountain trial, and this year's event represents another challenge.
Yeah, it's actually nice to be back in this area. Of course, the event itself is very much a rally purist event, and I've always enjoyed it very much. It's quite a lot of high-speed stuff, and it's quite tough on the engines of the cars. But yeah, we're looking forward to it.
The mountain trial is a high-speed event with co-drivers armed with rally pace notes playing key roles in the search for glory.
The navigator is an integral part of the team on this rally. The driver, to a major extent, drives on what he hears as opposed to what he sees, because the navigator can see that this crest is flat out, and the driver will be saying, "But I want to brake." The navigator is saying, "But it's flat out." So, to a certain extent, the navigator is able to dictate the speed of the car. So it makes the event very enjoyable for a navigator.
An inverted start order also provided for something a little different.
It's a whole new experience for us. It's great for our sponsors, so they can get some mileage out of it. And it's been a rush since this morning. We've been here first, scrutineering, documentation, and first on the road. So we're going to go like hell and see if they can match our times.
A bit of a tongue-in-cheek comment from Adrian Karp as he and Rikus Faria found themselves in an unfamiliar role as first car off the start ramp and first car on the road. With the start drawing a good crowd of rally enthusiasts, the Eastern Cape crew were followed by the little Fiat Uno of the Morais brothers, representing the Witzenberg Motor Club in the Western Cape. Next up were another Eastern Cape pair in Johan Stradum and Morne Ferreira, with crews heading for the opening special stage at the historic Brandkop racing circuit on the outskirts of Bloemfontein. Motorsport enthusiasts with long memories will remember the days when the Brandkop circuit hosted Formula One races that were part of the South African Championship. Before the track was closed down in the mid-1970s, some of the great names in South African circuit racing paraded their skills at what was one of the most popular race venues in South Africa. The track itself has withstood the ravages of time to remain in remarkably good condition, and the sight and sound of high-speed cars back in action at Brandkop brought a lump to many a throat of now middle-aged fans who allowed their thoughts to drift back in time. The Brandkop special stage drew an impressive crowd, with the circuit quick to demonstrate that it's still as testing a layout as any to be found on the current national circuit racing calendar. The inverted start order also gave crews who normally find themselves forgotten men at the back of the field a chance to strut their stuff in front of a large audience. The back-to-front grid also provided for plenty of entertainment for the crowds as they waited for the big guns to appear on the scene. With cars starting at 1-minute intervals, what was a rally special stage often resembled a Group N saloon car race. Charging through the right-hander leading into the S's was the Castrol top car Toyota Hilux in the hands of motor journalists Dion Schoeman and Jan Syme. Hot on their heels were top-class N1 contenders Alan Worms and Brendan Noonan, and class championship leaders Rodney Fasaki and Caroline Simmer. The right-hander before the S's can be a tricky proposition, and when Robin and David Goodman got themselves into a hairy tank slap situation, they went scooting off the circuit and gave a few brave spectators a serious wake-up call. Fissa du Plessis and Lisa Joubert were just starting the stage when they were overtaken by veteran Spotty Woodhead and Alan Carter. And this time the Goodmans managed to come up with a more conventional passage into the S's. While Stefan van Dijk and Mark Pym were making steady progress in a Toyota Conquest, the Castrol Toyota Hilux was hors de combat, and Fissa du Plessis and Lisa Joubert were in trouble. The Duplessis-Joubert Nissan Sentra had popped a motor in a big way and was headed for retirement. The next crew to run into a spot of bother at the approach to the S's were Richard Bam and Ashley Hadeker in the Class N2 Toyota Conquest. By the time they were back on an even keel, Dolph Coetzee and Eddie van der Walt had squeezed their way through. Behind them, Pierre Goossen and Thilo van Vestenhagen decided the best way to tackle the S's was to eliminate them altogether. They opted for the direct route through the grass, and apart from losing the pair valuable time in the Class A6 battle, it appeared to work okay. With the quicker cars and more experienced crews now out on the circuit, Enzo Kuhn and Steve Grobbelaar in the top car BMW were hugely spectacular through a complex of corners that were creating major problems for other crews. Rising star Cobus Roos and Neil Ferree in the Castrol Dunlop Toyota Corolla joined the tank slap brigade, with the pair part of the scrap in the highly competitive Class N2 category. Stage 2 on the mountain trial was a gravel affair just down the road from Brandkop, with Team Total Toyota crew Dean Saunders and Graham Hooper central figures in Class N2. Behind them were Class N3 contenders Cliff Blackman and Johan Klaassen in the Team Total Nissan Sentra, with Berto Mostert and Cobus Frey off to a solid start in Class A7. Chasing after them were veteran Hannes Grobler and Nick Haddon, who were busy taking early control of Class N3 in the Total Bridgestone Nissan Sentra. KwaZulu-Natal pair Tony Ball and Marty Olivier in the Bulwer Park VW Golf were among the Class A7 challengers, along with the Pretoria pair of Barry Grobbelaar and Mike Burrows in the Team Total VW Golf, who were early season championship leaders in the category. Fernando Rueda and Jill Talton in the X-Factory Daewoo Lanos were among the Class A8 challengers, while Class A6 champions Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz were out for the first time in the new Dunair Toyota Corolla. And right behind them, Kali van der Merwe and Andre Vermeulen were out in the ex-Fecken Lukowitz Toyota Conquest. Race cam action from the Reeks Towing VW Golf of Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding, who were making the early running in Class A7. After a shaky start to the season, the pair won their class on the Sasol Rally, round 3 of the Stanek Championship, and were looking for a repeat performance on the mountain trial. Van der Walt and Harding were candidates for a top 5 place, as were Etienne Lawrence and Barry White in the Team Total Toyota Conquest. With White filling in for Robert Paisley, who had business commitments, the KwaZulu-Natal pair were quickly into a solid 3rd place in the early stages of the mountain trial. Stage 3 was Skalkberger Jr. and Greg Godrich in the Glassfit Jojo Tanks Opel quickly among the front runners in Class N1. The Opel pair were involved in a 3-way fight at the top of the Class N1 leaderboard, with Alan Worms and Brendan Noonan trying to get their season back on track.
Yeah, we've had a bad season this year. It hasn't started off too well for us, but we're definitely the quickest in the class. We'll just get our reliability up there, and hopefully our luck's going to change, and we're going to turn that around and start winning races and coming back in the championship.
Class N2 is Toyota territory, and Cobus Roos and Neil Ferree in the Castrol Dunlop Toyota Corolla found themselves locked in battle again with the Team Total Toyota Corolla of Dean Saunders and Graham Hooper. Going into the mountain trial, Saunders and Hooper led both the Group N Championship and Class N2. Where Class N3 was concerned, Hannes Grobler and Nick Haddon were quickly in charge, with Grobler a winner of the mountain trial in the days of 4-wheel drive and turbocharging.
I won it twice from when I started rallying, and I think from a driver's point of view or a crew point of view with a car, it's one of the nicest events. It's very fast, there's a lot of mountain passes, it's very demanding on the car and the driver. It's not that spectator friendly, but I think it's one of the nicest rallies on the calendar.
The KwaZulu-Natal pairing of Tony Ball and Marty Olivier was struggling a little in Class A7 in the Bulwer Park VW Golf, as were Class A6 contenders Jean-Pierre Damso and Pierre Aris, who were out for the first time in the new Team Total Toyota Corolla. After a lone regional championship outing in the car, Damso and Aris were still finding their feet, but Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz were flying in the Dunair Toyota Corolla, which was also having its first national outing.
Carl and myself, we only did about 100 Ks together, stage Ks. So I reckon it's gonna take us a few more rallies this season to get it ready. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy at this stage.
More race cam action from the Van der Walt Harding car, with Van der Walt having to work hard on a special stage that was short, tight, and in places a little rough. The Reeks towing car was already involved in a tight scrap with Fecken and Lukowitz, but after their shaky start to the season, there were signs that Van der Walt and Harding were back in business and back to the sort of form that has brought them 3 successive Class A7 championships. Behind the Class A7 and Class A6 runners, the Class A8 big guns were in unfamiliar territory at the back of the field, with Paolo Piazzamuzzo and Richard Leake in the Sasol Motorcraft Ford Escort quickly involved in an early duel with Etienne Lawrence and Barry White. Race cam action is from the Ford Escort, with Piazzamuzzo and Leake, another crew, looking for a good mountain trial result after a couple of early disappointments in the championship. Everyone expected this year's Static Championship to develop into a 2-horse race, with the factory VW Motorsport Golf of Jan Habak and Doug Judd one of those horses involved.
100, turn of haven, left, rough, 50. Then rough and then T right, 200 T right, 100 T right.
The other key horse in the race is Castrol Toyota Conquest crew Serge Damso and Guy Hodgson, with day one of the event offering some interesting tactical choices.
Well, I think, you know, the first 4 stages, I think, is quite important to take it a bit slow, because, you know, you could damage the car quite easily in these little stages, and then you sit with it for the whole day tomorrow.
The Damso, Hodgson and Habak Judd combinations were running within seconds of each other when the field headed back to Brandkop for the final stage of the day. This time the stage was run in reverse, and in Class N1 only seconds separated the team total Toyota Taz of Rodney Versace and Caroline Simmer and the team total Opel Corsa of Alan Worms and Brendan Noonan. In a repeat of the first stage, Enzo Kun was enjoying himself hugely in the top car, BMW.
The car is holding together, and it's so far it's impressed me. I mean, I didn't expect it to come this far and to be as competitive, so let's see where it goes.
A 3-way battle in Class N2 had Cobus Roos and Neil Ferree chasing after championship leaders Dean Saunders and Graham Hooper. The third crew in the equation were Cape Town pair Diffie Moreira and Donny Duval in another Toyota Corolla, who posted the quickest time at the second time of asking at Brandkop. Cliff Blackman and Johan Klaassen were running second in Class N3 in the total Bridgestone Nissan Sentra, and behind them the spectacular Berto Mostert and Cobus Frey were still among the Class A7 challengers. Class N3 leaders Hannes Krobler and Nick Haddon were on the fringes of the top 10 and had moved ahead of the team total VW Golf of Barry Krobler and Mike Burrows. Jean-Pierre Damso and Pierre Aris were still battling to get to grips with the new team total Toyota Corolla and had fallen off the pace set by Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz in Class A6. Tar experts Piazzamuzzo and Leake were third overall and third in Class A8. When it comes to rallying, Jan Habak and Douglas Judd have never been short on commitment. Back at Brandkop, the VW Motorsport Golf crew were full of their normal aggression, and it earned them a time that was 2 seconds quicker than Serge Damso and Guy Hodgson in the Castrol Toyota Conquest. With Damso and Hodgson dropping 1 second to the VW crew in Stage 2 and 7 seconds in Stage 3, it meant a deficit at the end of the day of 10 seconds. Group A cars dominated the top 10 with the exception of the Kuhn Hrobler BMW that was running in Class S20. The pair were not eligible for national championship points. Van der Walt and Harding headed Class A7 with a comfortable margin, and it was the same situation in A6 for Fecken and Lukowitz. 10 seconds was not much of a lead for the VW Motorsport factory crew, but Habak was happy with the day's work.
We're happy with the day's work so far, and I think 10 seconds will come in handy tomorrow. So tomorrow the dice is on, I think. The real rally starts tomorrow.
Where drivers and co-drivers were concerned, the day was done. For hard-worked service personnel, next on the agenda was the long liaison section between Bloemfontein and Aliwal North, and an early start to day 2 of the mountain trial. Nestling on the banks of the Orange River, Aliwal North is a picturesque town famous for its hot water springs and spas. Lolling around in hot water spas was not on the agenda for crews on the mountain trial, with Aliwal North the gateway to some of the best rally country in the world. 7 special stages would take crews from Aliwal into the Clanville and Barclay East areas, and ahead of competitors lay some high-speed motoring on good quality public roads. The day's proceedings started with the traditional riverbank stage along the Orange River on the outskirts of Aliwal North. The field was back to normal running order, and overnight leaders Jan Havok and Doug Judd took full advantage of being first car on the road. The rising sun and dust provided something of a problem for crews running behind the VW Motorsport Golf, and Havok and Judd stretched their overnight 10-second lead over Serge Damso and Guy Hodgson to 16 seconds. Paolo Piazzamuso and Richard Leake in the Sasol Motorcraft Ford Escort started the day in 3rd place, but were only 8 seconds ahead of Etienne Lawrence and Barry White in the Team Total Toyota Conquest. Every indication was that the Ford pair and their Toyota counterparts would battle throughout the day for the 3rd spot on the podium. Day 2 saw Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding comfortably at the head of the Class A7 in the Riex Towing Golf, but they also had a battle on their hands. The perennial Class A7 champions had Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz on their tails, and this was another battle that was going to need watching throughout the day. Enzo Kuhn and Steve Krobler in the top car BMW with a Class S20 Thorn in Group A and Group N Flash, and although not eligible for national championship points, they were potentially top 5 candidates. Kuhn was relishing being back in action, but you can bet he wasn't pointing out tourist attractions during this little interaction between driver and co-driver. Former Spanish water ski champion Fernando Rueda, now resident in Cape Town, and Jill Tolton were firmly in the top 10, with the ex-factory Daewoo Lanos ideally suited to the ultra-quick conditions that lay ahead in the Clanville and Barclay East area. Jean-Pierre Damso and Pierre Aris were still battling to come to terms with the new Team Total Toyota Corolla, and they also had to watch their backs. Just 8 seconds behind them at the start of the day were Kali van der Merwe and Andre Vermeulen, who'd settled down admirably in the ex-Fecken Lukowitz Toyota Conquest. A marvellous landscape on the long 41-kilometre Clanville special stage, but this was where the mountain trial got down to serious business, and crews started to earn their keep.
Easy left, open hip and left, open hip and left, yeah. Into fast right, 100.
Rally leaders Jan Havok and Douglas Judd at work in the VW Motorsport Golf, with co-driver Judd working off pace notes prepared prior to the event by the organisers. It was on these long special stages that the fight between the factory VW crew and the works pair of Serge Damso and Guy Hodgson in the Castrol Toyota Conquest would be decided. A characteristic of the high-speed mountain trial stages are the sheer drops, normally on the co-driver's side of the car, and this is where crews have to gird their loins and take a deep breath. Damso and Hodgson pulled back 4 seconds on Havok and Judd on this stage to cut the deficit to 12 seconds. Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz in the Dunair Toyota Corolla were also quick out of the starting blocks on day 2. They picked up 12 seconds on Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding on the first special stage, and another 22 seconds here saw the pair move firmly into 5th place overall. Group N leaders Hannes Krobler and Nick Hatton were motoring along without a care in the world, while Class N2 contenders Diffie Moreira and Donny Duval in the Toyota Corolla were intent on making up time on class leaders Dean Saunders and Graham Hooper and the Cubis Rosenil Fari combination. Group N category is for standard vehicles with modifications mostly safety orientated, and the Class N2 and N3 vehicles are very quick motor cars. For all that, the difference between the top Group N cars and the highly modified Class A8 cars is vast. The likes of Havok and Damso completed the 41-kilometre Clanville stage in just over 21 minutes, but the faster Group N crews were around 2 minutes slower. A lone spectator stood sentinel as Adrian Karth and Rickers Fari went past and, like a true enthusiast, found a novel way of keeping track of the field. Dolph Coetzee and Mario Swart were still running strongly in an aging Toyota Conquest, while down in Class N1, Alan Worms and Brendan Noonan in the Team Total Opel Corsa picked up 9 seconds on championship leaders Rodney Fasaki and Caroline Simmer in the Team Total Toyota Taz. It was tough going for the smaller capacity cars, while up at the service point, tactics were now starting to become an issue for Jan Habek and Doug Judd.
Yeah, it was a pretty good stage for us, although we needed a bit of top end speed. Another 15 or 20 kilometers now on the top end would have done us good, I think. But generally it was a fairly clean stage, and we didn't do anything heroic there, so we'll just see what pace Serge is doing, and then we'll decide what to do on the next stages.
The correct use of pace notes was a key issue on the mountain trial, with former South African champion Richard Leek giving an insight into the advantage they offer.
I believe pace notes on an event like this, considering we have recce'd them once, they were written by the organisers. We recce'd them once at a slow speed, which means we haven't practiced them at high speed. But the difference between no notes and the plain route schedule and what we've just done, this 42 k's that we've just done, is probably about 20%. We're about 20% quicker on notes like we had them now. And of course, there's the safety aspect. Although you're going faster, at least because you have done the route before and you now have notes, those hidden turns, at least you know about. If you go off on the hidden turns, it's now your fault, isn't it?
More spectacular scenery, and matters were starting to look up for Etienne Lawrence and Barry White. A blistering previous special stage where they matched the time set by Damso and Hodgson had lifted them clear of Piazza Musso and Leek, and they were now a solid third. Enzo Kuhn was finding the rear-wheel drive top car BMW a handful on the tighter sections, and while starting to gradually lose ground, was still enjoying himself. Also losing ground was Jean-Pierre Damso and Pierre Aris in the team total Toyota Corolla, who were now behind Callie van der Merwe and Andre Vermeulen in the Class A6 battle. The major problem for van der Merwe and Vermeulen was the threat of a costly time penalty hanging over their heads for starting late on day one. Barry Hrobler and Mike Burrows were unhappy with the handling of the team total VW Golf, and they were also falling behind. The mountain scenery offered some fantastic viewing points for spectators, but for the likes of Berto Moster and Cobus Frey, it was hard going on some of the rougher sections. One crew on the move on day two were Tony Ball and Marty Olivier in the Bulwer Park VW Golf. They started the day down in 14th place, but were now into the top 10. Fellow KwaZulu-Natal crew Cliff Blackman and Johan Klaassen were fighting to stay in touch with Group N, and Class N3 leaders Hannes Grobler and Nick Haddon, with Cobus Rus and Neil Ferree playing much the same game in the fight between the Toyota Corolla crews in Class N2. Eastern Cape crew Keith Coleman and Uwe Koch were running fourth in Class A7 and going steadily, as were Gijs Klein and Johan Barnard in the team total VW Golf. Veteran rallyist Spotty Woodhead won the mountain trial in years gone by as a co-driver, and while he and Alan Carter cruised along, Class N1 champions Rodney Versaki and Caroline Simmer were battling with a carburettor problem that was eventually to cost the team total Toyota pair a whopping 17 minutes. That put them out of the picture and moved father and son pair Dave and Wayne Watt up a notch in another Toyota Taz. Behind them, Eastern Cape pair Johan Stradum and Mornay Ferreira were having a good run in their Opel Kadett, with the pair locked in battle with the glass-fit Jojo Tanks Opel of Skalkberger Jr. and Greg Godrich, in what was to turn out to be an intriguing Class N1 scrap. Imposing church buildings dominate many small South African towns, and at the service point in Berkeley East, Fernando Rueda was philosophical over what had turned out to be a disappointing morning for the Daewoo Lanos team.
Yesterday was going quite well. This morning we found a puncture on the long stage, 15K from the end, and we lost 3 minutes, which, as you know, in a rally it's a lifetime. And then this last stage was quite tricky, so we didn't do particularly well, but you know, the rally's still young. We've got a long way to go, and the car is getting better all the time.
A little hiccup too for Class N1 contenders Alan Worms and Brendan Noonan, who got to the service point ahead of their service van, which was in need of more attention than the car after incurring a puncture on the rough roads. The home stretch with rally leaders Jan Habek and Doug Judd still holding a 12-second lead over Serge Damso and Guy Hodgson.
Narrow bridge is slow right and right, keep tight into right open.
On the faster sections of the route, the Class A8 cars were hitting speeds of around 200 kilometers an hour, but it was now crunch time for the Castrol Toyota pair of Damso and Hodgson. The factory VW Golf and the factory Castrol Toyota are closely matched, but Damso and Hodgson responded to the challenge by taking 2 seconds off Havoc and Judd on special stage 8. That brought them back to where they were at the start of the day, with the Toyota crew trailing Havoc and Judd by 10 seconds with 3 stages left. Sasol Motorcraft Ford Escort pair Paolo Piazzamuso and Richard Leake had dropped behind the Lawrence White Toyota, but were in a safe 4th place and under no real threat from Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukovic, who were flying in their Dun Air Toyota Corolla. They were now in 5th place, but had to keep an eye on Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding, who were starting to mount a rearguard action. Jean-Pierre Damso and Pierre Aris were still jousting with Callie van der Merwe and Henri Vermeulen for the minor placings in Class A6, but up ahead matters took a dramatic turn on special stage 9. The battle between rally leaders Jan Havoc and Doug Judd and the Damso-Hodgson combination was thrown into the melting pot when the Castrol Toyota crew took 12 seconds off the VW team, which experienced reduced performance after a burst power steering hose. Damso and Hodgson were now in the lead by a mere 2 seconds. Special stage 9 also saw Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding lose time to Fecken and Lukovic, and that did not do much for their chances of catching the Dun Air Toyota crew. Enzo Kun was at his most spectacular in the fast sections in the top car BMW, but he and Steve Probler were now battling to hold on to a top 10 placing, while Hannes Hrobler and Nick Hatton were now pretty much in control of the Group N category and Class N3. With all his mountain trial experience, and he's a 2-time winner of the event, Probler relished the fast special stages, and he and Hatton now had a cushion of around 2 minutes over Cliff Blackman and Johan Claassen in the team total Nissan Sentra. Class N2 leaders Dean Saunders and Graham Hooper also had some breathing space, with the gap between the team total pair and Kubas Rus and Neil Ferree now stretched to around a minute. The penultimate special stage, and Jan Havoc and Douglas Judd threw caution to the wind in their effort to retake the lead.
We tried absolutely as fast as the car could go and as fast as we could stay on the road. That's what we tried, and well, that was 101%, and we can't do more than that.
400.
After losing the lead to Castrol Toyota pair Serge Damso and Guy Hodgson in the previous stage, a superhuman effort saw Havoc and Judd hit back to win stage 10 by 9 seconds. That put them 7 seconds in the lead with 1 stage to go, with a nail-biting finale now a fait accompli. Etienne Lawrence and Barry White were barreling along after a puncture that cost them precious minutes, but behind them there were problems for Fernando Rueda and Jill Tarleton, who were overtaken at high speed by Enzo Kun and Steve Probler. But the drama was not yet over, and at the end of the special stage there was heartbreak for Lawrence after losing out on what would have been a podium finish.
We stopped, changed, and then we fell behind Chart, catching a lot of dust, and the alternator stopped charging because the wire lugs broke off, and just as we got out the stage, fortunately, the car just went dead.
The final special stage was a repeat in reverse direction of the Riverbank stage back in Aliwell North, with Jan Havoc and Douglas Judd defending a 7-second lead. In situations like this, holding back can be a fatal error, but taking it easy in a special stage just isn't in Havoc's nature. Damso and Hodgson had no option to let it all hang out, and it provided for some spectacular action, but try as they might, the Castrol Toyota pair could only pull back 4 seconds. Paolo Piazzamuso and Richard Leake now found themselves third in the Sasol Motorcraft Ford Escort, following the Lawrence White heartbreak. But in rallying, you take podium finishes any way they come. A late charge from Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding came to naught when they finished 12 seconds adrift of Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukovic, who were hugely impressive first time out in the new Dun Air Toyota Corolla. More mountain trial success for Hannes Hrobler, who added the Group N and Class N3 wins to his 2 overall victories on the event, while Tony Ball and Marty Olivier put the finishing touches to a day 2 charge that saw them move from 14th to 8th overall in the Bulwer Park VW Golf. Victory in Class N2 saw team total pair Dean Saunders and Graham Hooper tighten their hold on the overall Group N championship, while in Class N1, late drama when Scott Berger and Greg Godrich were excluded from the results to give Johan Stradum and Morne Ferreira victory over Alan Worms and Brendan Noonan. A good 9th place for the top car BMW pair of Enzo Kuhn and Steve Krobela, while JP Damso and Pierre Ari sneaked into the top 10 when Callie van der Merwe and Andre Vermeulen picked up a penalty for a day 1 indiscretion. The traditional bubbly on the podium with Jan Habak and Doug Judd now 14 points ahead of Serge Damso and Guy Hodgson in the championship.
Yeah, it was a very, very tough day at the office, and yeah, we're quite pleased. I think 3 seconds is a very close margin for this type of event, and you know, the car went well. We had a small snag, but apart from that, it really performed very well, and we're happy.
So close and yet so far for Castrol Toyota pair Serge Damso and Guy Hodgson, and a welcome visit to the podium for Paolo Piazzamuso and Richard Leake in the Sasol Motorcraft Ford Escort. And for the ever jovial Hannes Krobler and Nick Haddon, the Group N victory meant a 3rd visit to the podium this season.
The guys caught us sleeping on the first stage this morning on the long stage. But we checked out the pace notes and see if it works, and after we got confidence we started sending it, and it went very well for us. We won the Group N, and we've given a few other big guys hiding as well.